back with another episode of the Branders Magazine Talking with Branders podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Picanza, and today in the studio from across the pond, I'm sitting with Mr. Matt Davies. He's a branding culture strategy consultant and the host of an amazing podcast that if you have not listened to, I highly recommend it, the Just Branding podcast. Matt, how are you? Great to have you here. Say what's up to everyone.
Stephen, it's an absolute honor to be part of the podcast. Thank you so much for having me on. Can I just say, I just love this podcast. So I know you've kind of been, just said my podcast is great, but this podcast is fantastic. Thank you for all the work that you're doing in this space. It's really needed. So, humble to be on. Thank you.
Oh no, I appreciate that. You know what? I think from practitioner to practitioner, anything that we can do to elevate the role of brand out there, we're all fighting the same common cause, which is mediocrity and bullshit branding.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we're slowly winning. I think as time's gone on, I still meet a lot of people that when you talk about brand, they're still thinking, oh, it's the logo and maybe the fonts and maybe a little book. But as time has gone on, I'm finding more and more sort of C-suite executives are starting to get it. So, viva la revolution.
Viva la revolution. Matt, that brings you a great segue. Tell everyone who may have been, again, living under a rock for the last couple of years, who have no idea who you are, kind of who you are, what you do, where you hail from, and, the 60-second elevator pitch.
Oh, 60 seconds is a tough one. Okay, so a background in creative agencies, a graphic designer by training. But soon through the short version is throughout my career, I've sort of always been interested in the why. Like what is behind this execution that we're doing? Why are we doing this? And that kind of has slowly got me climbing up the ladder, if you like, into strategy. So no longer do I open Photoshop and Illustrator and create logos and fonts and little booklets and websites and stuff like that. Now I've not touched the tools for some time. I now am solely focused on brand strategy, and we can talk about that at length. And I consult. And so my current sort of role is consulting for businesses of all shapes and sizes, mainly SMEs, but I've also got some big blue chip clients, as well as startups and recently funded clients. And my real niche, Stephen, is in leadership alignment. Like I'm really a leadership executive kind of advisor, facilitator, and energizer, I suppose, to help people really align around what's next, what their vision is for the future, and helping them get there.
When a client comes to you, Matt, leadership, alignment, and culture, when a brand is coming to you, are they coming to you knowing what they need? Or are they coming to you saying, we have an issue, can't put our finger on it, this is what it is?
Oh, massive question. The truth is that whatever they come to me with, I don't accept straight away, right? Because frankly, like imagine you went to a doctor and you went, doctor, I think I need my leg amputated. The doctor's not just going to suddenly amputate your leg. They're going to check it out. They're going to do some tests. They're going to make sure that that's a healthy thing to do. And likewise, I think the same with us, right? Leadership teams face pain, and they assume that perhaps a certain route is the correct route. Maybe they're facing slow growth. Maybe they're struggling with with what they perceive as positioning in the market. Maybe new competitors have come in. So they're all those kind of like market headwinds that teams have, and they assume like a new brand strategy or a new brand identity might help them break free of that. So my kind of first thing is never to take that at face value, always to do a bit of work with them to discover whether that's the truth. The other thing is just that they're the sort of macro challenges businesses have that I help with, but really there's kind of more of a micro challenge, and I do get kind of approached to help with these micro challenges. And when I say micro, I mean, it's not like company wide. It's more normally within that leadership team themselves. So what usually I'm wheeled in for, and I know different people are different in this space, but where I've sort of carved out my niche is in that leadership piece. And so what I tend to do is, yes, leaders approach me because they've heard from their peers or their network, or they've seen me speak or whatever it might be. And they know that I can help them solve the problem of misalignment in that team. Maybe they're facing high growth. Maybe they've just got funding, and they need to ignite that team. They need to get them all pointing in the same direction. And for whatever reason, everybody's fighting and pulling in different directions. And they know, because hopefully they know, that brand and brand strategy can help unify and stick all the pieces of their silos together.
It's so needed, right? Because I work with too many organizations where I think misalignment is the word. Misalignment should be one of their core values, because that is just what they operate at. That is their MO, right? That is just how they operate. And I think that, like, they're being reactive. They're moving so quickly. They never have the chance to stop and internalize where they are and what they're doing. So when you're going into an organization, you know, what's that deliverable that you are delivering? Is the deliverable the workshop itself? And, like, you know, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Like, are you delivering the journey, or are you delivering a destination?
Yeah, this is a massive question, because I often get asked this question, and to be honest, it's a bit of, I know this, people won't like this, but it is a bit of both. Okay, so yes, they want to get to a destination, and the destination is a crystal clear, really razor sharp understanding of what they stand for, you know, what their collective vision is, and how basically they can articulate that inside their organizations as well as out to the market and to potential customers to ignite growth. So that is kind of the destination. But also, you know, you could ask yourself the question, well, why don't they do this themselves?
Yeah.
I think there is a absolutely huge amount of value that an external person can add in the way that they go about things, in the challenge that they can bring, and in the experiences that they can create, not only for the leadership team, but then also potentially within the business itself. And so I've got this kind of weird skill set of being able to straddle quite a few areas to help them, you know, help them, yes, get to the destination, but to do so in a way that is hopefully as pain-free as possible, that folds in the thinking of customers and the marketplace and their leadership ambitions, and gets them there, you know, smoothly. And so that's kind of what I've been known for. I'm not kind of one of those strategists that go in and smash everything down and make people feel rubbish and, you know, and tear it all up. That isn't how I operate. I'm very positive, high energy, and I'm all for an easy life. So I try and, obviously you have to sometimes challenge, and you need to do that, but there's ways of doing it. So I guess I bring a very British flavor to the process, and you know, the flavor to things, and that sort of boded well for me.
You know, one might argue the British flavor is a little blah, right? But I'm going to say, as an Italian, I'm going to say that. But I'm going to say the flavor that you bring is so paramount, and so it's the salt that is needed to bring that dish to the next level. And sometimes you don't need anything more than just a little salt, right? And that may be just a fucked up analogy, but we'll get to the bottom of that. Matt, I have a serious question to ask you. You went from designer to here, and I know there was a lot in between, but you said something earlier about, like, you started asking why. Like, why was that, like, WHY was a question that you really lynched onto, and was something that, you know, helped propel you. But what was it about asking why that just fascinated you? Because listen, us strategists, we're an interesting breed of folk. We live by wonder. We like to ponder shit. We like to ask questions that maybe no one can answer. Have you always been like that? Or, like, what was that lineage for you, that journey?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back now, because we're talking quite a while ago, when I started out as a kind of a junior designer, working in agencies on the studio floor. And I got the opportunity quite early in my career to actually meet with clients, you know, with account managers and stuff present. And I would always try and just peer behind the curtain a little bit, you know, what's going on here? Why are we doing this? And what I found, to my shock and horror, was often people didn't really always know. Okay, so they bluff you. You get a brief through, and it will tell you what they needed, but you never really understand why. As my career progressed, I founded my own agency. I built that to 12 staff, and we were doing a lot of work, you know, we punched way above our weight. We were doing some really cool work with a lot, you know, blue chip companies and stuff, as well as everything in between. And what I found again was that when you asked, say, a marketing director who was briefing you what they were talking about, like, why are we doing this? What's the overall strategy? You know, where will the business be in 5 years? What, you know, where are you? What's the purpose of all of this? Again, they did not know. And so what I found was that kind of frustrated me. Like it upset me. And the other thing that upset me, Stephen, was being asked to veneer things, which frankly you knew weren't altogether completely accurate. You know, we're going to dress this product up in a way that's like this, and you're like, well, I know, because I've been listening to all the conversations here, that's not great. So I was all about truth. And I'd also kind of, where that didn't marry, I'd be like, well, why isn't that true? Like, why can't we do that? What's holding you back? And these marketing directors, I realized very early on, those CMOs and stuff, they're brilliant. But where you really need to be is at the top table, okay? Because often the way we set businesses up, we don't like this, we don't like to think this, but we're siloed. You know, we have finance, we have operations, we have sales and marketing, we have, you know, we have customer success sometimes in different companies. Different companies have the different things. And each at the top of all of those sort of sections, we have a leader. Now, if those leaders are not all joined up in why they're doing what they're doing and where they're going and what the vision is, then you're struggling. Now, you might say, Matt, of course they know where they're going. You know, their businesses exist to make money. And I agree. I'm not decrying that. Like, I understand how things work. I'm not some sort of tree-hugging hippie, although I probably look a little bit like one. But the truth is that they're here to make money. That's great. But this is the thing I like to think about. Nobody cares about the fact that you want to make money, apart from you. Nobody cares. Maybe investors,
shareholders, right?
Shareholders and so on. But really, that's a very small amount of people that really care about the business making money, usually. So what we have to do is we have to think about the fact that, you know, beyond making money, why does it matter? And who does it matter to? And that comes on to some really deeper questions around, you know, why do people even pay us money in the first place? Well, they pay us money because of the perceived value that we bring. The more value we bring, the more they're willing to pay. And so, but the question is, well, who are the they? And what is that value? And you know, that then I think fuels the whole conversation around brand strategy, which really is about, you know, what we stand for, how we're going to show up in the marketplace, what makes us different, and what is that value that we bring to the world? Where are we, you know, what's our vision for the world? And that, you know, is kind of, I guess, what eventually has led me to be in this place from a conceptual perspective. I could talk about the journey sometime. That'll bore you silly, but that's the thinking behind it, I guess.
Well, no, it's super interesting. And for all the listeners out there who are probably nodding their head, who may have a similar journey or are looking to embark on a journey, I think it's also, you know, it's like a breath of fresh air to know that to become a great strategist doesn't mean that you were brought up in strategy like that. It didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. One of the first episodes that we did with Laura Thomas with an agency out of New Orleans called Peter Mayer, you know, strategy didn't as a department wasn't here in 2005 or 2006. It was like you were part accounts, maybe you were part creative, but now because we know there's connective tissue amongst everything, this is why we exist, and this is why I think people are. There's a lot of enthusiasm around what brand strategy is. Before we go into the things that like wannabe brand consultants or junior brand consultants need to know, I want to ask you, going back to the leadership team, you are highly vocal around, you know, being able to embolden leaders and bring leaders forward through the work that you do. And you have Vision Camp with the team from Motto that you've put together. Why is that? Tell everyone what Vision Camp is and why that's important.
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I should say I'm a co-founder of Vision Camp with Sonny Burnell and Ashley Hansberger. As you say, They are the founders of an amazing agency over your side of the pond called Motto. I do work with them frequently, and what we realized is, I mean, I think between the three of us, we have like, we often joke, like I think we have like over 70 years collectively worth of experience working in this space with leadership teams. And what we realized was the ones that became successful after we'd worked with them and went on to do, you know, amazing things, they were the ones that were led by people with really strong visions, like really powerful. They could see, almost like see the future, and believed earnestly in that future, that it was worth bringing to bear. And so what we did was, you know, over a course of years, we were thinking about, you know, what if we kind of just focused in on the importance of vision as a theme. And so Vision Camp eventually was born. A really interesting concept. It's basically like a boot camp for people to really come together to focus intensely on their vision. And we've got a number of tools and methodologies that we have been trying and testing for many years. And you know, it's been remarkable. And with the recently we were actually asked to go in and to run Vision Camp with an in-house corporate team for Minnesota Vikings, NFL team, which was, you know, really, really cool. And we really enjoyed that. So, you know, Vision Camp's taking off. I would still say, you know, I think it's still in its infancy as to where it's going to go as a process, as a way of thinking. And so, yeah, we're really excited about the future. So, but prior to that, I think we've done 3 or 4 where we've just had people like anybody could come in, pay for a ticket, pay for a seat, if you like, and we put them all in the pressure cooker together. We run work, you know, it's basically an interactive workshop with areas in it that kind of which kind of really get you to think deep. So the official tagline is Vision Camp is an expertly guided visionary leadership workshop for leaders and executive teams tasked with shaping their organization's future. And that's what we basically help them do, either in a one-to-many kind of offering, or in a one-to-one offering, but with a group from that organization.
Well, tremendous work that you guys have done there. Congrats on the Minnesota Vikings. That's just an incredible brand to be working with, such a rich heritage and a legacy that, you know, they can't rest on their laurels, right? They need to be pushing on what's possible for the future. Matt, you mentioned something. You said, you know, you bring in a bunch of tools, you know, into Vision Camp, and there are a lot of aspiring brand consultants out there, brand strategists. There's a lot of programs that are teaching brand strategy, everything from, you know, Marty and Andy, you know, what they do at Level C. You and I are both alumni with Level C. So what are some of the things that emerging brand consultants like need to know?
Ooh, that's a huge question. I think, look, I think the truth is there are a lot of frameworks out there. There's a lot of thinking out there, but I'm a simple person, and I try and always pare back to basics. So I don't personally like use. I think I make myself aware of a lot of frameworks, and I'm constantly, you know, reviewing and thinking and going on courses and, you know, just reading books and trying to educate myself. But the truth is that, and I've got my go-tos, and we can maybe talk about those in a minute. But the truth is that, you know, ultimately, as I see it, like, I don't like to fixate around one specific breed of thinking, right? Because we're moving in such a fast-paced environment. Like, we've got AI knocking at the door now. You know, this is game-changing. We've got the speed of how we purchase as consumers is just increasing. The noise that's out there is just huge, and, you know, the human connection is really what we need. So I don't know really what does a young strategist need to know. Well, I think they need to know that they need to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable, right? Then hang on, let me say that again. I think they need to know they need to be comfortable being uncomfortable, in the sense that you need to constantly be evolving your thinking and challenging yourself. The key to being a good consultant, I think, is to understand and to make sure you deeply understand your client and their customers, because ultimately you're trying to create the value for your client, and you're trying to do that in an attractive way for their customers. And the thing I would say is that you need to work on challenging your client. It's no good just having a framework and say, let's go through and let's just fill out these boxes. To do it for real, to get in that room, you need to get them on board with where you're needing to go. And then you need to really, challenge them to make the bold moves. So it is it's a leadership question. And I think we often overlook that. We think, like, sometimes we're even guilty of it ourselves as branders, that we kind of think, oh, brand belongs to marketing, doesn't it? It's like, no, marketing is the execution arm. Yeah. Branding is the strategic arm. Don't let marketing take over, right? Don't let them have the day, because they're, going back into the silos of things, right? They are a siloed part of that organization. We need to get brand at the top, because that is the only way we're going to create real value and create real waves in marketplace. We need product teams on board. We need them to understand. We need operations. We need customer success. We need the people team to understand it, because all of those things combined is what creates a fantastic brand, not simply the veneer that a marketing team might put on the end in a few campaigns.
Right. To everyone listening, I hope you jotted what Matt said down. Be comfortable in being uncomfortable, and which, coincidentally enough, today, Communication Arts on their daily email had an article on why designers need to be uncomfortable more often, right? To talk about how it just challenge our assumptions as a strategist, right? Because if we come in assuming, then we're not doing our job. We need to come in and like you said, challenge, which was the third part, is challenge the leadership, challenge the status quo, challenge what always has been done so that you can do something different. And then I think the second one that you had said, right, understanding the clients and their customers. I love the quote from Zeno Acitium. So I'm a philosophy nerd, right? And Zeno says, we all have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Act accordingly, right? From a brand perspective, just stop yelling and talking to your customer, listening, take feedback and create a positive feedback loop. You're going to learn so much.
100%. Let me just say something though, right? Before you listen to the customer, you need to have identified the ideal customer in the first place. So that, I know you were talking to me about, potential models that I use, and some stuff that I fall back on is sometimes the simplest stuff, right? So I'm sure everybody has watched, and if they haven't, they should watch the famous TED Talk by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And I think that's one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. And what he says is, look, we need to understand why we do what we do. So it goes back to that question, right? Why?
Right.
A lot of people can explain how they do it. A lot of people can explain what they do, but it's actually really tricky sometimes to explain why. So when you can explain that as a brand, that's super useful. But the next step, and I think the step that Simon misses out, if I may be so bold as to suggest there's a bit missing, which is in the who. Sorry. So it's like, I tend to ask these questions. Why do we exist beyond making money? Who do we exist to serve? How should we show up for them? And what is our offer? What is our promise? What's our value? So it's the why, who, how, and what. Now, when you get all those component parts in place, and you're building that, collaboratively with a company, and sometimes the who's the hardest one, right? Because we might have some products already, and I think then we're trying to go around market those products to the people we think will buy. I think that's the wrong way around. I actually think that's more of an industrial revolution way of thinking. In other words, we make this product, we're in this lane, and we're now going to make all of that stuff from our factory. We're going to run around and we're going to try and sell it to as many people as possible. And we waste time, effort, and there's this load of noise, and consumers don't like it, and everyone gets frustrated. No, the better way of doing things, the modern way of doing things, is to, yes, start with the company, but instead of putting our product first, is to put the customer first.
Yeah.
And then create products or services or an offering that the customer really values. And so the who question for brand building is, I would say, the killer one. And like you said, Stephen, you've got to listen. And this is the thing that I find, particularly with businesses that have been going sort of 10 years plus. You go in and the leadership team, although full of great intentions, often have not got a mechanism by which they personally can listen to customers. They surround themselves with teams and teams and layer. And particularly the big companies, right? They might have a research arm, whatever it might be, but somehow those leaders are not personally connected with the customer. And so I always say in any work that I do, listen, look, if you want me to do this, I need to speak to some customers. Like I have to speak to them. I don't want to read a research paper or some data spreadsheet that you've done. I'm sure that will be helpful and useful. And I'm sure we've done our market analysis and there's a huge market opportunity here in Asia to go and sell because there's no one in this space. I get that. But let me speak to these people or our ideal customer to really understand the value that we can add to them and whether or not, you know, what we're saying is emotionally helpful to them. And I think when you do that, and then when you start going down that path, continue to listen. I think when you do that, as you say, you learn a lot. And as just one final thing, and as a sort of an outsider coming to a business to advise them and to help them through the process, like I feel like you have to do that, because what it means is you come with integrity, not your own opinion on the matter, although you might have your own opinion and that's nothing wrong with that, but more like, hey, you know what? It's interesting that you should say that, Larry, but you know, I just spoke to 3 of your top kind of current customers and none of them said that they buy from you for that reason. Yeah. So I don't think that's good for us to go down there. I think we're missing a trick here. And that's the sort of challenge you can bring if you have done your job correctly as a kind of a consultant.
I mean, Matt, you just dropped gold bombs all over this place right now. I just got to let you know that. And maybe that was a little insensitive for me to say with everything that's going on in the world, but they were gold nuggets regardless. I think first off, the power of why dramatically changed my career. When I watched that in 2010, 2011, I was at an agency working on the rebranding for a hotel and a casino in Las Vegas. And we were going through an internal rebranding of the agency. And that's when Simon had released that TED Talk, and it dramatically changed my thinking. It made me a strategist. Like that was the thing. So anyone listening who hasn't heard that, I will put it in the show notes. Fucking watch it. Like that, you're missing a huge thing if you haven't watched The Power of Why by Simon. And the other thing is, I love how you just challenged Simon and you were like, you're missing something. And I think that goes back to kind of those 3 pillars or those 3 points that you mentioned, where you just kind of challenge the assumption. Just because he has, hundreds of millions of views on that TED Talk doesn't mean it's gospel, doesn't mean it's right. It needs to be challenged. And so, so smart of you to add that extra layer in. And I also want to just comment on actually talking to customers, because I do a lot of work, like you, I work with an agency that they bring me on all the time to work on projects, and, they could feed us all of the research and the market research and the first party data and all this other, stuff, which is great. Oh my God, it's so good. But when you speak to an actual customer and you can listen to the tone of their voice, when you can ask those questions that just kind of skirt in between what they're trying to say, when we can understand nuance, that's when we're able to kind of put our psychology hat on and truly understand, like, as a human being, what are you trying to say? Or what are you trying to tell me? And I don't think there are enough branders out there that are going that extra mile. They're actually, they're putting it in ChatGPT, they're getting a customer profile and saying, there it is, but they're not actually having that conversation.
Yeah. I think ChatGTP could be the death of us as strategists, I'll tell you, because it's got its place. I use it for sure, but nothing will replace that human to human connection that I think that we need to do a good job. So yeah, 100% agree.
When speaking of ChatGPT and that human connection, right? Like, let's talk about the future real quick. Like what's really exciting you about the future and the role that brand has in the future? Like what are you bullish on?
These are big questions. I think the thing for me is that I believe that brand has the ability, brand thinking, if we can call it that, has the ability to really unite people. And I see it very much as a unification from within, to build culture, to build alignment, to build positive experiences for employees, so they feel fulfilled and that they've joined a company that they can really believe in what they're doing and they can get behind. Why? Because the company is truthful and authentic and has expressed its purpose and has expressed where its vision for the future really powerfully, and the leaders are all rallying around that. And I just feel like as an employee, like, yes, these are my people, this is what we're trying to do. I feel fulfilled. And so I think that is the power of actually good branding. And here's the kicker, behind that comes brilliant customer experience, brilliant new products that customers love, huge value in the marketplace, and then comes, the capital and the cash that really businesses are chasing now. And I think what they do is currently I think we're in a situation where I think they've got one eye on what I've talked about, but really we're still stuck in this, next quarter's figures, let's get the money, let's get the short-term money. Yeah. And I think as time goes on, investors, VCs, I think business leaders, they know that they've got to take that longer-term, authentic, truthful view, because the world we're living in now is becoming more and more transparent. And you can't get away with fudging things like you might have done in the past. And so I'm really excited about a future that's imbued with truth and authenticity, and transparency. And I think there's go back to the simple things. I think that's what we want as human beings. We don't want to be lied to. We want truth.
We want, yeah. What's alternatively, like what's scaring the shit out of you about the future?
Untruth. Yeah, untruth. And when I say that, I mean, like,
that's a thing, though. Like, that's an absolute thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the power of AI. I think that's good. It's not keeping me up at night in the sense that, I always think that the creativity of human beings, the empathy of human beings, is very hard to replicate with robots, because they're not us, right? They're not mortal beings wandering around with all that pressure and baggage on their backs. We are, you can't replace that, the human experience. And I think there's something to be said about that. So it's not keeping me up at night from that perspective. But what it does keep me up at night about is the volume and the noise, the volume of the noise it can create. Yeah. We're not far off, people just pressing a button and, ad campaigns are popping out that are tailored to you to really, promote particular way of buying, manipulative schemes like that. That scares me a little bit. It really does. So the robots are coming, and I'm a realist. I think that's going to happen. But I don't know if I like that world that we're hurtling into. I kind of feel we might miss the old days of the internet when it was just, communicating like this. I know, with no manipulative AI recording everything we're saying and tweaking what we've said.
You just said the old days of the internet, and Matt, you're like, that's such a near and dear phrase in my heart right now. But no, we're not robots. We are human beings, and is there a script in the making on how brand strategy saved the world? I don't know. Like that could be a co-author on it, but I don't know, because there's a lot more smarter, smarter people than me.
That would be funny. But the truth is, we don't know the future, right? So yeah, I remain optimistic. I think we're all doing the best we can on this little blue dot, and I think. Again, go back to basics. Truth and authenticity will win at the end of the day.
I'm also going to throw in simplicity. Simplicity is actually a thing that has been it's kind of been my theme of the day. Working on a couple brand decks. I'm working with an agency on some projects, and in talking with them today, it was like, you can have all this research, you can have all these, insights and models and whatever, but at the end of the day, just keep that shit simple. And how many, what?
That's our job. That is our job. I really believe that the strategist's job is to distill the complexity into the simplicity. Listen, I'll tell you something, right? I did a gig was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, with this leadership team of quite a big solicitors in London, here in the UK. Absolutely lovely team, beautiful people, fantastic. Solicitors though, right? So, brand is quite alien to the way that their brains think. Anyway, this CEO, she was just fantastic. She said, oh, before we start, Matt, like, we did put something together, but, some years ago, but it didn't really land. And, is it worth me sending it over? I said, yeah, sure, send it over. I'll review it as part of my kind of my initial research. So she sent this over, and I took one look at it. I thought, I can't believe this, right? It literally had clauses in it, right? It was like item 7.3.2, this is our purpose, stuff like that. And I was like, I can't believe that you've written, your kind of positioning in this way. And it was just buried in all of this stuff. Now, that's an extreme example, right? And I had a good laugh about it with them when we were there. And, I boiled that 20-page document eventually down into one big idea, and it just blew their minds, because when you have something so simple that then you ladder the complexity into, that's the key, I think.
Yeah.
And so organizations, I think, this has been around for a while, right? People call it brand essence, but ultimately, yeah, what one idea does your brand stand for? What is that? What is your rally cry? That, what is it that goes on your flag that you stick at the top of the mountain? Keep it simple. But that has to be distilled down from the complexity, for sure. And it has to be real. It has to be true. And it has to be something that your customers really want and your people want, on like kind of both sets of both groups. So that's hard. It's hard to do, but you can do it.
And that, to me, like, for aspiring brand consultants out there who think complexity is the way that they're going to win, it's actually the opposite. It's taking the complex and making it crazy effing simple that a caveman can understand it.
This is it. I love that. Yeah.
That's how I had to tell my mother-in-law what I do for a living. Because she looked at me one day. She's like, Steven, this is years ago. What do you do? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I do this and I do that. Like I'm a fucking scientist. She goes, talk to me like I'm a caveman. And I was like, oh, mother-in-law, you just kind of blew my mind right now. You're onto something. So the one idea, the rally cry, so good.
What's your response then? Can I turn a question on you? Like, how do you, because I get that question sometimes. Like, what do you do? I've got a go-to answer. I don't know if you've got one.
I think my I solve complex business problem. I make complex business problems simple, or something along those lines. Is what I think I ended up coming up with for my mother-in-law. My mother, though, I had to like tell her the whole story, and I said Mad Men. She's like, oh, I know what you do now.
Love that.
There it is.
Yeah, my go-to is I help leadership teams manage meaning. Like, that's it in a simple phrase.
Manage meaning.
What do you mean manage meaning? Like, for me, that's actually the definition of brand, right?
Yeah.
So your brand is the meaning that other people attach to you. And branding, the game that we're in, is the noble and audacious attempt to manage that meaning.
That's great definition.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's what we're doing. And it sounds very lofty and and that, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's really simple. Like, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
And you'll go far. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no. So many amazing takeaways from the one and only Matt Davies. Matt, tell everyone listening where you live on the internet and how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So, I mean, LinkedIn is my playground. I'm always on LinkedIn. So definitely check me out there. I've got a newsletter on LinkedIn. I think it's called Brandstorm. So you'll get any long form content on there. But I also have a website, Mr. Matt Davies. That's MrMatt MattDavies.me. So MrMattDavies.me. And you can find a load of goodies on there. There's some downloads. There's an ebook that you can get for free. There's a blog on there that I constantly write on. So if you want, regular insights as to my view on things, for what it's worth, you can sign up there. But I'd love to hear from anyone. So, if you're on a journey and you've got a question, like genuinely, I may not be able to respond immediately, but jump onto LinkedIn usually and ping me, and I'm more than happy to connect with you.
Yeah. And for more on the Branders Magazine, Talk with Branders podcast, check us out at brandersmagazine.com. And for more on me, I can be reached at stevenbacanta.com. And until next time, everyone, peace out.